Welcome to the Biotech Startups podcast by Exceeder. Join us as we speak with first-time founders, serial entrepreneurs, and experienced investors about the challenges and triumphs of running a biotech startup, from pre-seed to IPO, with your host, John Chi. In our last episode, we explored the early days of TileDB with Stavros Papadopoulos, his transition from research to business, the technical hurdles of building a scalable database, and the complexities of breaking into enterprise markets. If you missed it, be sure to go back and listen to part 2. In part 3, Stavros takes us through the next phase of TileDB's journey, scaling the technology, expanding its applications, and securing key customers. We'll hear about the challenges of building a high-performance team, the realities of enterprise adoption, and the strategic decisions that fueled growth. Stavros also shares insights on fostering an engineering-driven culture, overcoming market skepticism, and how TileDB is reshaping data infrastructure for scientific discovery.
So now, you've incorporated, but you've also just been, the timing couldn't have been worse with the mortgage that the family's about to start, and so take us back to that moment, and what were some of the what were the early days like, and what are the, just maybe at the highest level, what is TileDB's mission and value set?
Yeah, absolutely. So trying to remember some of the things, probably I'm blocking on purpose.
Yeah, you blocked it out. Yeah, it's sequestered it.
The depressing moments, so to speak,
Yeah.
and for anyone that is trying to do this for the first time, if it's your second time, you're good. Like the first time, it's the tough, then there's gap, and then second, third, fourth. Like those serial entrepreneurs, they're saying, "Oh, it's a hurdle, and it's a hard." It is. Not for you.
Yeah. Not for you though.
If I do it again,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be as difficult. It could be very hard, but nowhere near as difficult as it was doing it the way I did it. Okay, for the first time.
Yeah.
A technologist without understanding business at the time and all of that stuff. So nowhere near. I think it was maximum difficulty level.
Yeah. Sounds like it.
So,
absolutely sounds like it.
So it was extremely hard because first of all, during the first 18 months, I was coding like crazy. Again, I don't want to. And you can see my code on GitHub. I have a million lines of contributions to TileDB. So to see, I'm not joking, but again, I'm very good at architecture. Like I was architecting TileDB and the architectural decisions of the core engine, because now we built a lot that I was involved in the designs, but not in the implementation. I was involved in the implementation of the core and then the VCF stuff on top, the variant stuff. And the architectural decisions that I made there were the right ones. These are the ones that solved the problems and build the foundation for the success that came afterwards. Unfortunately, we had to build a lot on top. I'm going to speak about the vision and all of that stuff and the difficulties in building a company like TileDB. But the architectural decisions for the core engine plus the VCF stuff were the right ones. The algorithms were correct, the correct algorithms that give us a close to optimal performance for the problem at hand. The code quality had to be improved by professionals that came in, and then they started pulling apart the nitty-gritty details and perfecting it, and then deploy it, because that was not my strength. Deploying it, installations, cleanliness, all of that stuff that professionals do. So I was fortunate to find a couple of those people, young ones, but still extremely good, from MIT. And one value, for example, from the get-go that was paramount was the intelligence and the technological skill. That was like the first few people, not even today, but the first few people that worked on the code were highly intelligent, extremely skilled, extremely. We didn't know business just yet, so I can speak about business in the later years, but at the time it was pure software engineering, hardcore. hardcore software engineering, and countless hours of coding, stuff that you can't even see. If you're building an AI application or if you're building a nice UI, you build something, it's difficult, don't get me wrong, but then you see it. Then you say, it's beautiful. Like, you get inspired. You say, whoa, that's getting more beautiful. We are very low level. Our investors didn't understand what we were doing. Very low level. Everything, of course, programmatic. No concept of a UI. Nowhere near. Only lately we started adding a little bit of fanciness to the UI. You need to be a hardcore engineer, C or C++, understanding computer architecture to optimize for the CPU cycles in the algorithms, and very big emphasis on performance, not utility, not usability. I don't know if that was a mistake because we were emphasizing on the differentiation. When you go to the market, the customer might not care about that stuff. They might care first about the usability, then about the technology. We did it in reverse, which I don't know yet. We'll see how it works in the future. But I felt that this is the real innovation. So you see, still I have a technological mind back then. And that's why, back to your question, what it felt like was strong innovation at the lowest level with a lot of coding and very skilled. A few, 3, 4. We became 4 after 12 months, 13 months, even more. We were 2 for 6 months. Then the third one came, and then the fourth one came in 12 months, 13 months, something like that. So average headcount, 2.5 in the first 18 months.
Yeah.
With $1 million. What do you expect to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
And then, of course, we had a little bit, and I had to raise money with the runway, right? Like, we needed at least 6 months of runway so that I can raise the next round. But in any case, this strong obsession about performance caught the eye of our first customer who needed exactly that. They said, we have a scaling issue with population genomics. We have much more data than broad, and we're losing money. And we can't do it. We can analyze this data. So they helped us. And of course, they became a nice customer for many years. And this led to the next round, the seed round. That was another 3 million. So 1 was the first, another 3 was the second. And again, the goal was build the technology a little stronger. Again, nobody's going to understand anything for the next 18 months. And we're going to get a second customer. The second customer was the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, who is still a customer. Amazing partner. We can talk about amazing, critical partner for us. But we got the second customer. And then in the middle of the pandemic, we raised a $15 million Series A round, which was insane. It was in the middle of the pandemic. Nobody was investing. But fortunately, our network and the vision that resonated very, very well with the new investors, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, the vision and the technical capacity, like the technological skill that a lot of companies out there did not have. And they were saying, wait a second, yeah, it might take a long time. Like they were saying to me, it's a lot of work. That's not an easy company to build. But the technological innovation, first of all, it has a big purpose. And second, is strong IP. We don't know how it's going to work out because, again, it really depends on the resources, on the timing of the market, how deal were in the enterprise, so how enterprise deals close. So there are a few things that are not in our hands, but at least they were seeing a vision that they resonated with, and also the true technological level that you don't find in other places, especially in life sciences. In life sciences, there's, again, we hear that from customers. There's a lot of vaporware. Oh, fancy UI, and you're doing a great job. No, it breaks down. It breaks down when the data accumulate. It breaks down. We did the exact opposite. Strong engine, no problem about scalability. We're working on the UI, okay?
Yeah.
We're working on the UI. We understand. Yeah. We're working on it. But we wanted to solve the real innovation. It's the core. It's the engine. So anyway, this a little bit on the trajectory. if we want to talk a little bit about the vision, perhaps, John, it makes sense. This after 2 hours, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
To talk a little bit about the vision.
Yeah.
But here's how it started, all right, and how it is manifesting with the practical realities of a startup. And this also, for your audience, it might have value, right? Like it's a different thing what you want to do, and a different thing what you can do when you are constrained. It's an optimization problem. Like you have constraints and you need to have a maximum result given the constraints. If you don't have constraints, the maximum result is different. It's better. But with constraints, the maximum result might cap. Like you can get better than that because you have the constraints. And of course, I was thinking about all of that stuff, but I was learning more as it was manifesting. So what I wanted to build was conceptually very simple, but a lot of people could not comprehend it, which is crazy. So here I'll tell you the observation. And now it's easier to understand because people have started to feel the pain, but at the time they could not get it. We're talking about 10 years ago when I was talking about this, right? 11 years ago. So I had the observation that it's just a logical sequence of thoughts. First observation, there is certain data that can't fit in tables. An image. You cannot store an image in a table, correct? Believe it or not, genomics is similar. Genomics is a different beast. All right, it's complex, and the single cell also very different, and nuances, and a lot of proteomics and other stuff. So anyway, there is certain data that can't fit PDF, text, right? All of that stuff. Before the AI craziness, there is certain data that cannot fit in a table, correct? So what do organizations do? They buy Snowflake or Databricks or something else for the tables. Then they have Dropbox box or whatever for files. And then they have a million different solutions, either bespoke for imaging from General Electric, I don't know, I'm just contrived examples, okay? Or something that they are obliged to build in a big pharmaceutical, they're obliged to build it, it doesn't exist. I don't judge them. It doesn't exist, so they're obliged to build it. And you end up with an infrastructure which is insane. And then because it is insane and people want to reason around it, they started calling it names. In the past, we just had Oracle, right? You said it's Oracle, DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, whatever it is, System R, whatever it is. But it's one. Yeah. And I have some DBA, some database administrators, and that's it. Today, you have 1,000 vendors. And I'm talking to a lot of CEOs, and it's crazy what's happening with those CEOs. Like they're fed up and they're starting cutting heads, like cutting vendors like crazy. What's happening now? They call it digital transformation, by the way.
Of course.
Of course, it's a digital transformation. You accepted 10,000 vendors to solve a problem that is solvable, but not like this. It is solvable. So you ended up having 10,000 vendors and infrastructures, architectures, and the solutions architects and data engineers and all of these people to try to patch, to hack something to solve your problem. So, and they started calling it names: modern data stack, data fabric, data mesh, like all these things, which, hear me out. Given, if you accept this reality that I will have 10,000 vendors, if you accept it, then modern data stack, data fabric, and data mesh makes sense. But I was refusing to accept the reality, man. For me, this could either end up being spectacular or it's going to come to it's going to bring our demise. I want to be very clear here. Either it's going to fix everything and people will shift and they're going to start reasoning around this problem differently, or people are going to say, you know what, look, I'm sticking with this craziness, in which case we don't have a place, or we have a small place, in that stack. What I was saying is, I refuse to accept needing 10,000 vendors and 10,000 people to manage data. I refuse to accept it. So I'm going to go back to the roots and see what the problem is. The problem is that Oracle, Snowflake, Databricks, and all the others are focusing on tables and your data is not tabular. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So why don't we build a database that can handle multiple types of data? Now they're calling them multimodal. We have been calling them multimodal since the beginning of time. And now everybody said, oh, because ChatGPT and Gemini and whatever, they're multimodal. Oh, we need something multimodal. Oh, now you need multimodal. You didn't need multimodal before ChatGPT, and now you do. You have always needed multimodal. Your data is not only tabular. You have a lot of tables, but you also have PDFs, you have images, you have reports in multiple different formats. You have so many different things. And there is no database to handle all those data types. And therefore, you end up, you're accepting this reality, and you're doing the next best thing to bring in 10,000 vendors. That's the next best thing. So I was refusing to accept that. And I was saying, no, man, you can, we just need to change the model. And that's a hard path, by the way, because you need to start reasoning around arrays, much more general, more powerful data model. But don't forget the relational model, because the relational model is also powerful for tabular relationships. So keep that into the array model as well, which is something we're doing. And then tell all of those folks to start changing their practices, which is very hard. Very hard. That's why I'm saying either people will start coming around. It's going to take longer. And I told my investors, even now, I'm saying this publicly, it's going to be hard. But it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It is. I'm sorry. It's the right thing to do. We're wasting money. You're wasting money as an organization, like hundreds of millions of dollars. I can save you that money easily. But you have to start reasoning a little bit differently. Like, you need to understand that it can be a single database, no platform, not whatever you call it, mesh. It's a database. It has authentication, access control, logging, an execution engine. It organizes everything. It creates those data products that you like. All of that stuff can happen. And at the same time, structure the data. There's nothing that is unstructured. There's a very big convention, which is mistaken, that there is structured data, which is tabular, and then there's unstructured data, that is files, image. And an image is unstructured. An image has width, height, and pixels, which is a cell. And every cell has maximum 4 numbers. RGBA, that's your image. And the baseline. There are other images, like they may have a metadata annotation, all of that stuff. Fine. But the bottom line is that this is extremely structured. Extremely. It's just that it cannot be structured by a table. So why are you calling that structured? Call it something that is non-tabular.
And not tabular, yeah.
It's not tabular. So these are the things that I observed, and I said, this is insane. So I fixed it. This is exactly what TileDB does. It fixes this. It's a multimodal database. It uses a much more powerful data model underneath, and it can structure the data that others see as unstructured. It can handle tables equally well to anybody else. I don't want to undermine the tabular work. It's a lot of work that has been done in the tabular space, which we follow and we support. But tables is one of the modalities in an organization that is used for what we call discovery. And that's why we like to coin TileDB as a database for discovery, because contrary to other databases that you query, you have a tabular database and you query it. Querying a database doesn't give you the breakthrough. That's not enough. This tabular database is part of a huge infrastructure with a lot of people involved, and it's just a cog, right, in this huge thing that people query, and then there are so many other things that are going on in order to discover the breakthrough. Well, TileDB alleviates it. It eliminates those hassles in a single platform. It's a platform that allows you to actually discover, not query. You can do many queries. You can query the electronic health records, then you can go and find the genomic profile, then you can go into transcriptomics, then you can see some images, and you can derive a particular answer or insight, and that's your discovery. So TileDB is a database for discovery. But in order to be a database for discovery, we had to fix the elephant in the room. You have 10,000 vendors because your tabular databases cannot handle your data. You ended up having 10,000 vendors and building in-house, which is insane. This is the last thing I'm going to say and take a pause.
I'm fascinated. No, actually.
But this is the craziest that I have seen. I don't judge them, but I want them to think about this. A big pharmaceutical building a database, effectively a database product. Like, they don't say it's a database product. It is. Like, if you have if you're dealing with catalogs, authentication, access control, logging, compliance, execution, deployments in the cloud, you build the database, okay? You build the database. And you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars for this because you need 20 people, very expensive. They need to build it. And most importantly, they're doing the same thing as the next pharmaceutical and the next pharmaceutical and the next pharmaceutical and the whole domain. In other words, all these human hours are completely wasted. All of them. Why? Because there can exist a single product that you can buy for a fraction of the cost. And in all likelihood, it's going to do a much better job because that company is hiring professional database people. So building a database in a healthcare and life sciences organization, to me, is equally crazy as us, a database company, creating a wet lab to find the cure to cancer.
Yeah.
That's the same. And let me elaborate. We can find smart people. We have smart people. We don't have experts for therapeutics and drug discovery, but we can find them. We can, given the same funding that you guys may have with the pharmaceutical, we can find them. And we can go to a warehouse, create a wet lab, and we can start building this with enough expertise and with enough money. But we're a database company. It's not our core. It's not our core business. It's not that I cannot do it. I could with enough funding, and if I'm charismatic enough and go raise $1 gazillion out there, I can build it. But then we should not be called TileDB. We are not a database company. It's the exact same argument for the big pharmaceuticals. Don't build these things in-house. It's insane. Like you're using Snowflake and Databricks and Oracle for the tables. Why are you using something bespoke that you built for single cell? Doesn't make any sense. It's equally difficult. Single cell and genomics and all of these equally difficult to building a tabular database. So this is the kinds of problems that a company like ours, which does something significantly different from the status quo and which requires behavioral change in order to be able to succeed in a domain like this. And the reason why we are taking the risk, right, because this is our career, this is VC money, is because we believe in the mission and the vision. Because if it does work out, it will accelerate science significantly. We're seeing it already. We have partnerships with the Rady Children's Hospital for an amazing initiative on newborn screening, and right now they're finding insights that they couldn't have had before because of the scale we're addressing. They're querying TileDB, getting insights immediately. Before it was taking days, now seconds. And this is a huge purpose for us, guys. Yeah, we're gonna put in the work. We're gonna definitely put in the work, even if it is extremely highly unlikely to succeed in the broader scope of things, because somebody has to. Yep. Somebody has to, and even if we inspire the bigger companies to do it, even that is a success to me. Like, okay, at least we're hoping to prove that this is what needs to be done. Stop doing what you're doing. If other companies adopt this, it's fine. It's fine. We're okay with this. And everybody in my company is going to be very happy. They're going to tell their kids and their children, you know what? We shaped the market. We shaped the market. And this is what is being done. And now we have discovery faster. It's not that discovery is not going to happen. It's going to happen. But the philosophical question for everybody to answer is this. If you had the chance to do it faster and you didn't do it, what's your contribution? Like the philosophical aspect of it. For example, if you do something that can save a couple of babies' lives and you don't do it, those babies' lives are lost. Granted, you may do it in 5 years, and you may say, "Yeah, but look at how many babies' lives I saved afterwards." No, man. I said, if you had the choice to do it now, you can do it now, but you're not doing it. So think about that aspect. Don't think about how successful you're going to be in 5 years. Think about what happened in these 5 years, that you had the choice, right, to do it, and you didn't do it because you had to build something in-house, or because of egos, or because I don't know what happened, that you didn't buy the right technology, you didn't adopt the right technology that could have helped you save those lives or find a drug faster than you did. That's the philosophical aspect that keeps me up at night, and the reason why we're pushing in this company, and the reason why this sense of purpose is very high in our company.
That's amazing. And I think my wife is in tech, and it's kind of, and we were talking about it earlier, about kind of like this inertia. Like they're just they have companies, organizations, broadly speaking, private, public, doesn't matter. There's just like this like organizational inertia that just kind of like pulls you in sometimes directions that you should not be going. And as you're describing this, like piecemealing, it's a bunch of technical debt is what they're building up, but they just refuse to pay it down. And that applies in databases, software, everything. It's kind of like this organizational inertia. And I think I love to hear that the mission that TileDB has, and honestly, I think as you guys are building up momentum, what I've found, at least for Exceeder, so Exceeder, like we do equipment leasing. The status quo has always been to buy equipment. And when I was in the lab in academia, that's what you do. You get a grant, you buy a bunch of equipment, and then you just like move on. But in startup life, when you raise, a seed round that's a couple $1,000,000, and you buy like, let's say you have $3 million for your seed round, and you spend $1.5 million on equipment, your runway just went in half. And that decision was just because of status quo, right? It's just like, that's what I've always done. I've always bought equipment. And it's kind of like similar. It's like, well, we just always work with Snowflake, and we've always had these like, pieced together. It's like this own database internally. We're just going to do it because we've always done it. And I think
you're spot on. That's the argument. That's exactly the parallels that we can draw 100%.
It's kind of like crazy because like I think I would have thought that it's kind of like, it seems like the rational thing. Like it sounds very rational to me. Like, but I think what I've learned and what I'm sure you're experiencing is that a lot of this behavior and decision making, it's oftentimes not rational. Because the rational thing to do,
John, it's also complex. It's not, and I'm sorry to interrupt a bit.
No, you're good.
This is important. It's not always, the fault of a particular decision maker. It's not. And actually, I think it's worth discussing this a bit because it's also crazy. We're working almost exclusively with very large pharma organizations. There are, of course, exceptions for some very good startups that we're working with in the life sciences domain, but it's mostly pharmas. And we saw a huge variance in these interactions. Like we have seen us signing contracts end to end, like procurement, legal, information security within a month. And we have seen deals dangling for a year and a half, 2 years. And it's not because of decision making. There is, especially one organization we're working with, where the technical aspect is a given. Like it's like we made tests, we're crashing competition. They can't, like they're 100% blocked from doing science without our product. So, we have the so-called business validation because in these organizations, you need the business validation, you need the IT. You can't do one of the two. IT cannot bring in anything without business justifying it. And business cannot bring anything in unless IT vets it. But sometimes these organizations are disconnected, like when business and IT doesn't work very closely together because they have completely orthogonal KPIs, right? Like goals. And the deal dangles in the most remarkable places, which are irrelevant to whether this organization wants your product or not. Granted, someone may argue, and this is the easiest argument to make, but it's flawed, I promise you. The easiest argument is, come on, like if the business wants it, it's gonna get in. I agree, but that doesn't mean it's gonna get in tomorrow. And because there are people involved in these different steps that can lose their job over this because they skipped a step.
That was exactly what I was thinking, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Like there are people that know they're not getting the benefit of the product. Business does, but not these particular people. And these particular people are seeing it as a black box and they're saying, oh, I'm going to follow the same process as everybody else. It takes 6 months. And then you say, yeah, but if really the business wants it, that's what we're doing. Okay, we're going to the senior architects, then we're going to R&D IT bosses, then we're going to the CIO. We're doing that, trust me. And in my opinion, we're doing it successfully. Building the relationships, they trust us, and they're seeing results elsewhere. So we're doing everything well. Still a year and a half. Okay, so
Yeah.
so, and this is exactly what we're telling also the VCs. The VCs are saying, product market fit and everything. How do you define it? Because there are so many organizations that want us, so many, but they're struggling with, how do I get the budget? Because it's new, right? So new budget needs to be unlocked. We need the budget. There are reorgs. Reorgs are screwing things up all the time. A single reorg may screw the deal completely because there's a reorg and the champion left and the strategic objectives changed. That doesn't steal away from the fact that this technology is absolutely necessary to drive
It's the
discovery,
right solution. Man. It's the right solution.
Not only the right, necessary.
Yeah.
Necessary. Without it, drug discovery stalls.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that. It only means that the logistics, unfortunately, at this stage, maybe in the future it's going to be easier because the domain becomes more mature, right? At this stage, the logistics are extremely hard and it requires a little bit more patience to get the technology into the hands of the organization in a formal capacity, in an official capacity. And that's what we're working.
And that's exactly spot on. And I was thinking about too. What was that saying? It used to be no one got fired for buying IBM, and now it's nobody got fired for buying Microsoft. Like that's kind of like right.
For
and
Snowflake,
it's kind of
for Databricks.
Yeah, for Databricks
all the time.
Yeah, similar thing where you could have exactly what you said. It's necessary and it's the right solution, but there's like so many stakeholders that might be involved in this thing, and you just don't know what their priorities are. Yes, the end user is emphatic about what you have to offer, but then there's this other conflating kind of factor, and it's like it's hard to. And I think you mentioned that, like you said some will close in a month, some will close in a year and a half, and these are all large pharmas. Do you find that when you work with the handful of smaller companies that this is not a problem, or do you find the same kind of through line with these kind of like organizational kind of rowing in different directions or having different priorities?
Yeah, this is a great question. No, the smaller organizations are way faster to move. The problem you see with the smaller organizations is it's the same outcome, but different reason. So the big organizations, they might be afraid about their role. Like, I'm going to bring this in. Like, they really need to be pioneers. Like, if you read another great book, Crossing the Chasm, that's exactly the chasm. Like, you get the pioneers, but then to get it to the mass market is a chasm. And then you need a lot of things. You need the mind share of the market. You need feature completeness, very important, and then maturity and other stuff, right? But the pioneers are there. The smaller companies, usually it is, in the past we were expensive in the sense that the only way for us to get to revenue goals, to raise money, was closing big contracts because we did have a lot of people to support a lot of smaller contracts. That's not we're not a PLG kind of like product-led SaaS. That's not the nature of our business. We're enterprise. It requires expensive talent and expensive time spent for deployments. So we couldn't afford to have a very small price tag because we were providing all this value and it was costing us to provide this value. Now things are different. We have different pricing, much lower, much more flexible, and all of that stuff. So we appeal to the smaller organizations as well. The problem with the smaller organizations are that either they don't know us yet. Remarkably, the big pharma does, are not so much the smaller ones, which I find fascinating. And it's that they have a specific network that we didn't break into just yet, where they have either some common tools that they use, open source, and other tools that infiltrated that domain, also relatively on the cheap side, just satisfying their current data needs. Or they just go with boilerplate solutions from AWS, for example, or from Azure. Again, not very deep, at least today, in sophistication, but good enough for sure, for them to go and say, okay, I'm going to do this. If I get into scalability issues or if I get into feature issues, I will consider something else. But it's good enough. And since it's good enough, they get credits, right, from those cloud providers. But I can spend credits there. So it's different reasons. Still, they're not choosing the right solutions, but for their stage, they might think, they might not know. They might think that actually that's the solution I need, and I'm okay. Or they do things in-house, again, with the same reasons as the big pharmas, that I think that's the status quo. What you said before, pretty much. I don't know any better. The top 5 pharma does it. And I can do it for the scale we're talking about, so I'm good. I'm good with my own solutions. Yeah, but you have an FTE there, full-time employee, right? And that could cost you $200K. You can buy TileDB for 10, 20. You see, and you can get top-notch support and top-notch quality, and you can grow with TileDB. Like you can grow and you can actually, at this stage of our company, you can even shape our product, right? Because now we're very accessible to all customers. Obviously, we're small enough for that. So, but they don't think that way because they don't know. They don't know that this is on the table. So that's on us to create a little bit more awareness. Again, surprisingly, the big pharma comes to us because they do have the pain immediately. They say, you know what, like I really need this, like now. Versus the others that they just don't know that this is on the table.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Biotech Startups podcast with Stavros Papadopoulos. Be sure to tune in for part 4, where Stavros tells us about the future of TileDB and its impact on the life sciences. We'll hear about the broader vision driving the company, how Stavros and his team are tackling industry-wide inefficiencies, and what it takes to disrupt entrenched systems. He also shares his thoughts on the evolving role of data in biotech, the importance of long-term thinking, and the lessons he's learned from building a deep tech startup. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. See you next time. The Biotech Startups podcast is produced by Exceeder. Don't want to miss an episode? Search for the Biotech Startups podcast wherever you get your podcasts and click subscribe. Exceeder provides research labs with equipment leases on founder-friendly terms to support paths to exceptional outcomes. To learn more, visit our website www.exceeder.com. On behalf of the team here at Exceeder, thanks for listening. The Biotech Startups podcast provides general insights into the life science sector through the experiences of its guests. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from the podcast is at the user's own risk. The views expressed by the participants are their own and are not the views of Exceeder or sponsors. No reference to any product, service, or company in the podcast is an endorsement by Exceeder or its guests.